Welcome back to the Means Report. Thanks again to Scott Seidel for explaining everything going on with the Augusta Players. Please support them. And please help me welcome our next guest. He's going to talk about a fascinating subject that I bet many of you don't know a whole lot about. I know I didn't. That's why I booked him. He's Mordecai Evans. Mordecai is the lead advisor for Business Acquisition Advisors, LLC. Mordecai Evans, welcome to the Means Report. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you, Brad. Glad to be here.
Well, let me just, first of all, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but when I think of what you do for a living, I think of someone who puts people together who either want to buy a business or sell a business. Is that accurate?
Yeah, absolutely right, Brad. Yeah, so as an M&A advisor or a business broker, people use the terms interchangeably. Our role is to represent either the seller or the buyer in the purchase or the sale of a business.
All right, that makes sense. Yeah. So why do we need you? Why should people use a business broker instead of just going, hey man, you want to buy my business? You do? Okay, come on over.
Right. There are a lot of reasons why you would benefit from professional representation, just like any other profession. We're trained to do the job, and so the benefit of having a professional advisor help facilitate the sale are a number of reasons. One, we have a buyer pool to pull from that people are already looking to buy businesses. Number one thing that people, when I meet with a client first, is they're really concerned about confidentiality. How do I market the business confidentially without my employees knowing, my vendors knowing, and my customers knowing? Because that's very important, because if someone actually finds out the business is for sale, that can jeopardize the cash flow of the business and the value. So having someone that knows the process of how to market that confidentially, how to bring buyers to the table, how to negotiate a letter of intent, how to manage the due diligence process to get the deal to the closing table, because just because you get an offer doesn't mean it's going to close. You have to have someone in there to help facilitate that transaction to the closing table. There's a term in our business that says that due diligence is where deals go to die. Well, having a skilled advisor there helps kind of manage that process and increase the likelihood of getting to the closing table and managing, getting that more cash in the seller's hands and a higher value and better terms.
It scares people when you start digging too deep or the transaction starts to take too long.
Yep, absolutely.
What makes most business owners, and maybe this is different for each one, what makes them decide to sell? Because that seems like it would be a super tough thing to do, to let go of your baby.
Absolutely right, and it's a very emotional decision. When you look at statistics, most people decide to sell, number one, because of retirement. This business is a source of income for 20, 30 years, and is actually a source of their retirement income as well. So being able to liquidate the assets of that business and take that cash and move on to the next phase of their lives is very important to them. So they want to protect that asset. The second reason why people want to sell is burnout. As you can imagine, doing something for 20, 30 years, even 40 years, doing the same thing over and over again every day, they get burned out. And so if you have a business that's valuable and it has good cash flow, good customer base, that's an asset that other people, you may not want to continue doing it, but there's value for other people that want to continue doing that.
Is there ever a situation where you would advise somebody to merge or to, versus an outright sale, or to allow another company to acquire them? Are there advantages to that? So most people, when they're ready to sell, they're ready to get 100% out. Right? Okay. They want to sell the business, get out, because they want number one, retirement and burnout. They don't want to be involved within the business anymore. So they want to sell it either 100%, or some people can sell a portion of the business, depending on the structure wise, but the objective is they want to sell it and get out to move to the next phase of their lives. Retirement, spending more time with the grandchildren, traveling. So a lot of different things that they can move forward to is the reason why they want to sell and kind of move on. While you're talking about what you're talking about and describing these businesses, I'm picturing mainly smaller businesses in strip centers or in, perhaps like a place like Surrey Center. Is that the kind of company or business that we're talking about, or do you represent businesses in all parts of the market?
Right, so my firm primarily represents businesses in the Southeast. And you're exactly right. So there are, when you look at the profession, business brokers and M&A advisors, they're used interchangeably, but business brokers and M&A advisors are very different in what they do. So business brokers would primarily represent like mom and pop shops, restaurants, smaller businesses, less than $2 million in value.
Okay.
M&A advisors will pick up at that $2 million to about $50 million in value and represent businesses in that realm. Anything higher than $50 million, you're talking about investment bankers. My space is in that $2 million to $50 million in M&A advisor. So we try to, our target client is a larger business. And those typically go to private equity companies or strategic buyers.
Private equity companies, they're mean, aren't they? Don't they come in and they're nice at first and then they turn mean?
Well, that's the perception, and that's one of the things I want to talk about today. So private equity companies do serve a role in our market,
sure.
Right? So if a company gets too big, individuals can't purchase the business. So private equity companies are there to kind of fill that gap. They have a lot of cash, so they can purchase larger businesses and allow that owner to get out. One of the challenges with private equity, like you said, are they mean? Sometimes they can be mean. So they do solicit companies directly and try to purchase the business. Well, one of the problems with that is if you're a business owner, the likelihood of you selling a business is, you're probably going to sell one business in a lifetime.
Yeah.
Private equity companies, they're professional buyers. And so in that situation, that owner can be out leveraged or outmatched. So that's one of the reasons why you need to hire a professional advisor in that situation, because we can represent you in that situation. We can bring more buyers to the table. We can create a competitive bid process where we allow people to bid on the business to get the higher price and the best terms, because that's the objective, get the highest price and best terms for your business. That way you can sleep at night not thinking that you left some money on the table.
All right, that makes sense. And to my private equity friends who are watching, I was being somewhat facetious and buying into the stereotype that they buy things and then chop them up. There are nice people in that field.
They serve a really, I would say, it's a need in the market for them.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
All right, let me ask you about, you mentioned mom and pop operations. Do you ever have a situation where someone is trying to pass a business on to a family member? And is that a place where you'd have a role?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you think about the sale of a business, if I own a business and I have a child, the first option, of course, is I want that child to take the business over. Mm-hmm. In some situations that I've seen, either the owner doesn't want the child to take over the business, or the child doesn't want to take over the business, or the child is not capable of taking over the business. In that situation, you look at the employees, and sometimes the employees are not able to afford the business.
Yep.
In that situation, well, what's my option? Well, the third option is going to market, to the market to get the highest price and the highest value for the business. And in the family transfer, we're not really involved in that. We can be in some cases if the owner decides to kind of help facilitate that, but in most situations that's done internally.
How do you determine the price of a business? How do you get to that number so somebody knows what to sell it for?
That's a great question. So at the end of the day, a business is only worth what someone's willing to pay for it.
Exactly.
Right? So we can look at what the business does, the sector it's in, we can look at the revenue, we can look at the cash flow, and we can get a rough idea about what we think it'll sell for, but the ultimate determination of what the business is going to sell for is the marketplace. The marketplace determines the price. Mm-hmm. And one of the things as advisors we take it to the market to bring as many buyers to the table as possible to let the market determine what that price is. So we've had situations where we've helped owners sell for significantly more money than we thought we were going to get for.
Is their revenue a key factor where they say, hey, look, this is how much my business makes? And if that is a part of it, how many years worth of revenue do you need to look at? What kind of snapshot?
Yeah, absolutely. So businesses are primarily valued, depending on the type of business, on the profit. So it's a multiple of the profits. And generally what we do is we look back to about 3 to 5 years to help the buyers kind of evaluate trends in the business and make sure that the cash flow and the revenue that they're looking at is consistent.
One or two more questions.
Yes, sir.
I told you it would fly by.
Yes.
One has to do with due diligence and the time that it takes. And so my question is, what's the typical timetable from the time I reach out to you and say, hey, can you help me sell my business, to the time we close?
Great question, Brad. So I typically set the expectation of 6 to 12 months to sell the business. That's from engagement, listing the business, to closing. I like to do it faster than that, but the expectation is 6 to 12 months. From the time we get an LOI or a letter of intent to buy the business to closing is about 3 months. That gives a buyer time to do due diligence and all the advisors to get together, managing the purchase agreement and getting all the closing documents kind of arranged.
Well, I want to thank you for what you do. You hold people's hands through what I'm guessing is, in some cases, an emotional time.
Yeah. I would say, we're skilled at what we do. I'm very skilled at what I do.
Yeah.
I'm very skilled at looking at the numbers, reaching out to buyers and working with buyers. But I think the biggest value in what we do is we guide that owner through that process because it's very emotional, and they need someone to kind of guide them through that process because the emotions go up and down, and having a steady hand there to kind of tell them, hey, this is normal, we're fine. Just to hear that reassuring voice is very helpful to owners. So a large part of my job is being a counselor and kind of a friend during this time.
You need somebody by
Yes.
your side during that. And Mordecai Evans, thank you for being that person. Thank you to Business Acquisition Advisors for all y'all do. And I appreciate you explaining it. I learned a ton from you, as I knew I would, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Mordecai Evans, reach out to him if you're buying or selling. He can help you. When we come back, how you can help us get more great guests like Scott Seidel and Mordecai Evans will show you when the Means Report continues.